Coleman and Commissioner Estela de los Rios all let us know that they will be absent, so they have an excused absence today.
Okay, and Commissioner Hodges just texted, he said he'd be a little late getting on.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, well, let's call this meeting to order. Welcome everyone to the Leon Williams San Diego County Human Relations Commission. We're starting at 10:01, and now we will call this meeting to order. Roll call, sir.
All right, Commissioner Anaya.
Here.
Commissioner Cinnamon Clark.
Present.
Commissioner Angela Elliott Santos.
Present.
Commissioner Eleanor Evans.
Present.
Commissioner Sarah Farouk.
She reported an absence.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Rodney Fowler.
Present.
Commissioner David Garcia. Commissioner Christina Griffin Jones.
She just got logged on.
Okay, thank you. I'll check back with her at the end of the roll call. Commissioner Taha Hassan. Commissioner Hodges, Dennis Hodges. Commissioner Adeem Ismail.
Yes, here.
Commissioner Corey.
Here.
Commissioner Julia Legaspi. Sheriff Kelly Martinez. Vice Chair Nicole Murray Ramirez. Chair Nash.
Present.
Commissioner Gina Roberts.
Here, sir.
Dwayne Woodley on behalf of District Attorney Summer Steffen.
Good morning.
Morning. Commissioner David Vance.
Present.
Commissioner Alex Villaforte.
Present.
All right, all members are accounted for, present and accounted for. So we can
Sorry.
move on. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Taha Asani, I hope
Okay.
I'm pronouncing your name right, is present.
Okay, Taha Hassani,
Yes, sorry.
thank you. No, it's fine. And also, I believe you said.
Present.
Thank you, Taha. All right. Oh, I see Commissioner Griffin Jones, you have your hand up. Are you want to announce your presence?
Yes, thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you, Commissioner Griffin Jones.
Commissioner Julie Legaspi is not going to be with us today
Okay.
due to health reasons.
Okay, we made that note for the record, Chair Nash.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to our land acknowledgement.
In recognition of and respect for Indigenous peoples as traditional stewards of the land that we now call the County of San Diego. For millennia, the Kumeyaay people have been a part of this land. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of the San Diego community and inhabitants of the Mayat Taipei Kumeyaay territory, we acknowledge this legacy. We promote this balance and harmony. We find inspiration from this land, the land of the Kumeyaay.
Thank you, Director Strong. Agenda item 4.
All right, thank you, Chair Nash. So this motion, this will be the last time we read this motion, and we're reading this motion to allow for our subcommittees to continue to meet virtually until the emergency order expires on the 28th. So pursuant to Government Code Section 54953E3, a motion to ratify the chair's previous determination letters filed on behalf of itself and all committees. The commission has considered the circumstances of the state of emergency, and state and local officials continue to recommend measures to promote social distancing, and direct the chair to review and make the required determinations as applicable to allow the commission to meet remotely at least every 30 days. Do we have a motion?
I would make that motion, Commissioner
I
Roberts.
second that.
All right, I will call the roll. Commissioner Naya,
Aye.
Commissioner Cinnamon Clark,
Aye.
Commissioner Elliott Santos,
Aye.
Commissioner Evans,
Aye.
Commissioner Farouk. Absent. Commissioner Fowler,
Aye.
Commissioner Garcias, Commissioner Griffin Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Hassani,
Aye.
Commissioner Hodges, Commissioner Ishmael, Commissioner Adim Ishmael,
Aye.
Commissioner Corey,
Aye.
Sheriff Kelly Martinez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Nicole Murray Ramirez, Chair Nash,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes, sir.
Dwayne Woodley on behalf of DA Summer Stephan,
Aye.
Commissioner Vance,
Aye.
Commissioner Villaforte,
Aye.
the motion passes unanimously. And Chair Nash, I just know for the record, Commissioner Murray Ramirez is trying to log in.
Yeah.
Cindy, if you don't mind making sure he has the call, or she has a call-in number, and that way we can get the vice chair into the meeting.
Commissioner Ramirez would prefer to be addressed as he. As
Okay, thank you. All right, Chair Nash, we can move on to public comment. I do see Commissioner Anaya's hand is up.
Commissioner Naya?
Hi, I'm just real quick as we move on with the agenda. I don't know if it's an issue, but I was trying to log on to our website to see our posted agenda for today's meeting. And the link is not live on the county website for us. And so now I'm wondering if our agenda posted in accordance with Brown Act.
It did post, and we also have actually two members from the public listening.
Okay.
Yep.
Can someone send me that link then? Not the agenda, but where it was posted, only because I'm trying to literally click on it and I can see other meetings, like our subcommittee meeting agendas are posted, but the link for this meeting is not live on the county government website.
And things, we'll make sure it's working right now, and then we'll make sure you get that link specifically too. But it is posted. It's also posted outside our building as well. All right. I also see Commissioner Griffin Jones. Chair Nash.
Commissioner Jones, yes.
Thank you. And good morning, everybody. I recently received an email, some of the constituents I represent, about being led to believe that there was going to be an alternative to their incarceration, and in fact was, tricked by the sheriff. I really want to really encourage us to remove toxic and anti-human relation building commissioners from our commission. And when I lift up those individuals, specifically, I'm talking about the sheriff, the DA, chief of police, Commissioner Hodges, as well as Vice Chair Commissioner Nicole Murray Ramirez. I hope that we are deep in commitment to making this a safe place for community. And as long as the aforementioned commissioners are on this commission, that's impossible. Thank you for giving me the floor, Chair Nash. And I'm complete.
Okay, on to public comments.
All right, and Chair Nash, we have one member of the public who has their hand raised wishing to speak. And that's a Sonia Robinson. She can have 2
Great.
minutes to speak, or they can have 2 minutes to speak.
Yes, sir. Thank you to Chair Nash, as well as Mr. Strong, Director of our Equity and Racial Justice Committee, to speak. And I just wanted to share some sequence of events that are happening in the space of sustainability. My name is Sonia Robinson. I'm definitely a community advocate for public policy in the space of environmental and climate justice. I'm also the chair of the Environmental and Climate Justice Committee for the NAACP North San Diego County branch, and also the owner and founder of Sustainable Urban Network, as well as I wear many other hats, as many of us do. So I just want to let you know that I've been engaged with our county's regional decarbonization framework. And I do think in general that it is a good strategy as we move forward to decarbonize our region within the next 30 years. Although I did observe some inequitable processes related to the regional decarbonization framework. And as a result, a letter was sent to our county leadership, to Chairwoman Vargas and Vice Chair Lawson Reamer, addressing some of these inequitables, which included that the public comments for the draft implementation playbook closed on the 2nd. And so when that draft implementation playbook, just to give you some background, was posted on January 20th, and County District 5 had their convening on January 31st. And so public comments closed 2 days after that particular convening. And it also, I'm sorry, is someone else trying to speak or? Okay, I'm sorry, I just heard it echo.
No, it's Nicole. I just came in. I'm sorry.
Okay, and so at the end of the day, the fact that public comments did not post for 30 days on this particular phase, and it also circumvented County District 3, which is Vice Chair Lawson Reamer's district. The county now has agreed to extend those public comments, which they did. Instead of February 2nd, they have been extended now to March 31st, and the board's vote is now on April 5th. And another item, and I think this board may be interested in hearing.
And Sonia, I'm sorry, I have to pause your time. That's your 2 minutes have elapsed. If you would like to send a letter or email to the commission, we can make sure that they all have that information that you would like to share.
Okay, I just want to mention one other thing, that the county leadership now wants to have a press conference. And so I'll be in touch with Chair Nash to see if you guys want to stand in solidarity with these issues that the county has addressed.
And thank you.
Any other public comments? Director Strong?
Not seeing any other members with their hands raised or members of the public.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ms. Robinson. We will definitely follow up with you. We now are going to move to agenda item 6, which is our celebratory awareness month. We're going to follow up with the LGBTQ awareness month. And also I will be making some comments on the Black History Month.
And thank you for that, Chair Nash. The member we asked to speak towards this for like a little bit more time to present and put together a more formal presentation.
Okay.
So we're going to move that to March, unless there's somebody who wanted to speak to follow up LGBTQ on Awareness Month today, but we want to make sure we allow the appropriate amount of time and space for the presentation that everybody wanted for that. But I do see Christina Griffin Jones. If you would like to speak, she has her hand raised, Chair Nash.
Okay.
I definitely am really excited for the presentation that does get put together. I think it's truly important, especially in light of things that have happened on this commission regarding Commissioner Hodges' comments, that we honor that Black people are everything, right? We also are queer, so we are people that make up the LGBTQIA community and are such strong movement leaders because while the civil rights movement was happening for cisgender, heterosexual Black folks, it was LGBTQIA Black folks leading that effort, right? We talk about Bayard Rustin, we talk about Marsha P. Johnson, right? And there's so many other masculine presenting lesbians and trans folks and non-binary folks who have been here since the beginning, right? An activist I really look up to, CC McDonald, once said, it was Black trans folks on the slave ships to say that queerness has been and is integral to Black folks, as our Blackness is an understatement. And I'm so excited to be able to be a part of community, in community, of folks who share both those identities and many more. So I'm so excited for that presentation, and really just so honored and thankful to queer pioneers who come before me, as well as Black queer freedom fighters who've come before me and are still alive and celebrated here in San Diego every day.
Thank you. I'm going to defer to our own Commissioner Cinnamon Clark to share comments in regards to Black History Month.
Thank you, Chair Nash, and thank you, Commission. Good morning, everybody, commissioners, staff, and all who have joined us here today. It is an honor to have been asked by Chair Nash to give a few words this morning on Black History Month. So, Black History Month is not just a hashtag or a month, not to be confused with being woke or not to be confused with hashtag BLM. Black History Month is an opportunity for us, for all people, to honor the people whose backs this country was built upon. This month should be an opportunity to reflect on the contribution of Black folks and folks in the Black diaspora who have contributed so many great things to this country that we all experience. So many of those systems, to include science, technology, and modern conveniences upon which we all rely today. Specifically, modern medicine and gynecology is what was built on the backs of Black bodies and done without consent in a lot of ways. Many of the technologies that we rely upon, even in the delivery of this call here today, is built on the innovation and the brilliance of Black folks, and often without the credit. So Black History Month is more than taking a few quotes from MLK, John Lewis, Maya Angelou to make us all feel inspired and, go away with this great feeling of, all of these things. Oftentimes, these quotes are taken out of context, and they're actually taken in addition to being out of context, in a way that makes us feel good. As a country, we oftentimes, back away from the discomfort of understanding the very complex history of our country. And, today, I ask you to be allies to the Black community, right? Just like the commissioner before me, Christina, mentioned, we have such intersectional representation in the Black community. It's important for us to really celebrate the contributions, but not limit it to the shortest month of the year, 28 days, right? Every day is Black history because this country was built upon the backs of Black people, right? And today I challenge each of you to take the time to learn. It's important to know the history of why we are where we are at. And in order to build on that in a very authentic way, we have to come to understand the contributions of the history, even when it's uncomfortable. We see cities and states all over this country, pulling Black history off of the shelves because it makes people uncomfortable. You know what? In the discomfort is where the growth is, right? And to understand our history and to go forward in a meaningful way, we have to understand that history. And we're doomed to repeat the past if we don't lean into that history. And this applies to young and old. We still have people who are alive and participated in the civil rights movement, right? It's our opportunity, the generations that came behind that generation, to really learn and glean those lessons, right? Because we think we're so far removed from that, but we actually aren't. I was born in 1979, just 15 years before 15 years after the civil rights movement, okay? So it was in my lifetime. It was in everybody's lifetime here with the exception of a couple folks. So please, as we move forward with Black History Month and we close this month out, I ask you a couple things. One, understand your history. Two, be allies. Don't speak on behalf of folks, right? It's our opportunity to walk in solidarity, just like Commissioner Christina mentioned just a few moments ago, because the least of us that are provided the opportunity to thrive will only benefit all of us. And lastly, it's important to walk and be in solidarity with folks and to continue to grow and to learn so that the things that we are seeing as far as removal of American history that involves Black people from our educational systems, our books and the such, fight against that, right? Because once we start to erase the history of folks, we're missing the opportunity to grow, to learn, and to be a society that actually embraces all contributions from all folks. So thank you again, Chair Nash and the staff for this commission for allowing me to have the few words today.
Thank you, Commissioner Clark. We're now on to agenda item 7.
But Chair Nash, we actually, I'm sorry to interrupt. We actually have a member of the public with their hand raised.
Oh, okay.
And we can allow them to speak for 2 minutes on this item if you would.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Strong and Chair Nash. This is Sonia Robinson again. I just want to say thank you so much, Commissioner Clark, for your presentation. I think it's really important that we do continue to advance the awareness of Black History Month and our contributions. And to that point, I also wanted to kind of dovetail that one of the issues that was brought to our county leadership was that BIPOC communities at large do not want to be identified as disadvantaged communities. And so that terminology is something that our leadership, Chairwoman Vargas and Vice Chair Lawson Reamer, is willing to make sure is footnoted in that documentation I referred to for our sustainability efforts, to footnote that that terminology is problematic. And I think that this commission is a great vehicle also to reinforce the terminology that best represents us. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go on to agenda item 7, support for Friendship Park and support for the Bayard Rustin Stamp Campaign, and our own Vice Chair, Commissioner Nicole Murray Barreras.
Yes, thank you, and good morning, commissioners. I think many of you know the story of former Congressman John Lewis and other African Americans in the infamous bridge. Oh, excuse me, it was Friendship Park. I just got back from Seattle. And that was another motion, which we did pass, and I want to thank you for that. Friendship Park, I think all these commissioners are aware, is a park where people gather and at the border. And there is now a threat to put the wall or to demolish the park. There's a lot of support for not doing this, not only the Union Tribune, but almost every civil rights organization that we support Friendship Park, and that it remain there because it's very important, and many things go there on there that bring together the Mexican citizens and American citizens, and also people who have families divided. So it's a very important symbolic park, but it's also a park that brings our two nations together, their people. So I would make a motion that we go on record on supporting Friendship Park to remain.
This is Commissioner Khoury. I second that motion.
Any discussion?
Not seeing any members with their hand raised or members of the public, Chair Nash. So with that, we
Okay.
can call a vote for that motion.
Okay, let's call the vote.
And this is a motion to support, maybe write a letter of support for Friendship Park.
Yes.
Mhm.
Commissioner Naya,
Aye.
Commissioner Cinnamon Clark,
Aye.
Commissioner Elliott Santos,
Aye.
Commissioner Evans,
Aye.
Commissioner Fowler,
Aye.
Commissioner Garcias, Commissioner Griffin Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Hassani,
Aye.
Commissioner Hodges, Commissioner Ishmael,
Aye.
Commissioner Corey,
Aye.
Commissioner Legaspi, she's absent. Sheriff Kelly Martinez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Murray Ramirez,
Aye.
Chair Nash,
Aye.
Commissioner Roberts,
Abstain.
Dwayne Woodley on behalf of Summer Stephan,
Aye.
Commissioner Vance,
Aye.
Commissioner Villaforte.
Aye.
Madam Chair, that my motion passes.
Excellent. Let's move on to the next action item that's being presented by our own Vice Chair, Nicole Murray Herrera's, regarding the support for the Bayard Rustin Stamp Campaign.
Once again, I hope that many of you, and I do believe, would know about Bayard Rustin, because many don't outside of the African American community. He was a mentor for, in fact, Martin Luther King. He also was actually the executive director of the famous March on Washington. He was also a strong supporter of labor and just an unbelievable civil rights icon. There is currently a national campaign that's been endorsed by the Congressional Black Caucus and many civil rights leaders, which I'm honored to be a national chair of this campaign that we started many years ago. Interesting to note that during the 50s and 40s and 60s, the police department did a lot of entrapment of gays, homosexuals, and Rustin was a homosexual himself, and openly. And if you can imagine, to be an openly homosexual in the 50s, 60s, and 70s until 76, he could have been arrested and sent into a mental hospital just for being a homosexual. And of course, as I mentioned in previous presentations, that in the 50s, 60s, 70s, just in California, homosexuals could be sent to a mental hospital by the stroke of a pen of either their parents or a judge, and many received lobotomies and electric shock treatment just for being who they are and loving someone of their own sex. That being said, he was open about it and was trapped, police entrapment, and arrested. I had gotten word from the National Stamp Committee that and there was a problem there because some of the, to be very honest, Reagan appointees objected because he was a homosexual and had been arrested. And this is a continual coalition building, and as one of our commissioners stated, people working together. Shirley Weber, Dr. Shirley Weber, then the chair of the Black State Legislative Caucus, and Scott Wiener, Senator, was chair of the LGBT Caucus, and they joined together with me and other leaders as we got Governor Newsom to expunge his record. So we're very hopeful. There is a movie coming out of him that actually the Obamas have become producers of to tell his life story. I think it's long overdue that he is honored with a U.S. postage stamp. I had the honor of meeting him in the 1970s and am close friends with his partner who is still alive. So I would request that we go on record to support the U.S. Postage Committee and department to issue a stamp at his honor. But before I end, I want to say that in San Diego, we have the annual Bay and Rustin honors. And last Wednesday at City Hall, the Human Relations Commission of the city presented 8 outstanding African-American citizens in San Diego with these honors. And 2 of the honors were Lifetime Achievement Awards. And Ernie McCrae, educator and well-known poet in the African-American community, was one of the honorees for the prestigious Lifetime Achievement Award. And our own Alan Nash, our chair, was also a recipient. I want to congratulate her. She gave some very outstanding remarks and did our commission proud. And I think it's an award well deserved and well earned. So I would like to make a motion that we go on record to support the national campaign to get a U.S. postage stamp in honor of Bay and Rustin.
I'll second that motion.
All further discussion?
And I saw your hand up, Commissioner Clark. Did you take it back down?
I did. That was just to support the motion or to make the motion, but it's already been done.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. I will call the roll. Commissioner Anaya.
Excuse me, what's the motion again, please?
The motion is to support the Bayard Rustin stamp campaign.
With a letter?
Thank you.
With a letter?
Thank you.
With a letter?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Commissioner Anaya.
Aye.
Commissioner Cinnamon Clark.
Aye.
Commissioner Elliott Santos.
Aye.
Commissioner Evans.
Aye, and I second that motion.
Thank you. Commissioner Fowler.
Aye.
Commissioner Garcias. Commissioner Griffin Jones.
Aye.
Commissioner Hassani.
Abstain.
Commissioner Hodges. Commissioner Ismail.
Aye.
Commissioner Corey.
Aye.
Sheriff Kelly Martinez.
Aye.
Vice Chair Murray Ramirez.
Aye.
Chair Nash.
Aye.
Commissioner Roberts.
Aye.
Commissioner Vance.
Aye.
Commissioner Villaforte.
Aye.
Dwayne Woodley on behalf of District Attorney Summer Steffen.
Aye.
Madam Chair, that motion passes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to agenda item 8, County Council training by Randall. I won't mispronounce your name, on the new AB 2449, 2022 Brown Act, tele rules and rules of order.
Thank you, Chair. It's Randall Schoblum.
Shobham, okay. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. I was with you last time covering for Smith, who was unable to attend the last meeting, but for those of you who have not met me, I've been with the county for about 5.5 years. I'm currently on a new team in our office dealing with general governance issues. So Brown Act, conflicts of interest, Political Reform Act, Public Records Act, things like that of that nature. So I'm working with a lot of different organizations within the county, bringing trainings to them as the law gets updated. as well as dealing with special projects and board supervisors. It's been a really interesting job. So I'm here to support Smitha. She's your attorney, but since I've had a little bit more work in some of this training, she's asked me to present for you today. So first, we're going to talk about the changing world of the Brown Act. Your organization was formed during COVID. So my understanding is you've always met by teleconference. So as I'll explain, things are changing, and this is not going to be an option for you starting next month. And I think Andrew's been good about giving you a heads up about that. But I'm going to tell you why, what the history is, and what the options are going forward if one of you has the need to conference in, what your options are, so everybody's on the same page. So I'm going to start sharing a slideshow, and feel free to interrupt anytime if you have questions. I'm okay with that. And also, I've given all the slides to Cindy so she can distribute after the meeting, so you'll have copies of this presentation. So I'm going to start sharing. Hopefully. There we go. All right. Can you see my slides? Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Sorry, I'm used to Teams, so Zoom's a little less familiar to me. So, all right. Okay. So for a very long time, there's been a teleconferencing option in the Brown Act for a couple of decades. And it's actually because of the County of San Diego. I did some research back in the 80s when the county has always been a big jurisdiction and the roads weren't always as good as they are the freeways. There was a request to the state legislature that, hey, sometimes maybe we need someone to call in because our county is so big. So the state legislature had changed the Brown Act to allow for a teleconferencing option. That's when it began in the 80s because of our county, which is kind of interesting background. So it's morphed a little bit, but what I'm showing you in the slides today is what the options are if a member of your group wants to teleconference in under the standard rules under the Brown Act. Like I said, these rules have been around for a very long time, but not something most public officials have taken advantage of because there's some logistical issues with this. All agendas must be posted at a location, just like now at your physical location, but the agenda has to notice the teleconferencing location from which the official is calling in from. So like for today, all of you are calling in probably from your homes or your place of employment. We're not listing those on the agenda today, but on the standard rules, you do have to do that. Each site must be accessible to the public. Something you probably don't want people in your homes or your place of work showing up. So that's why, again, these are things that frequently never got used. When I've advised prior board of supervisors or city council members on this, usually when I start going through these requirements, they always say, forget it. I don't want them showing up in my hotel in Hawaii while I'm on vacation or whatever it is, right? So I've rarely seen these used. Because members of the public at each site must have an opportunity to address the public agency. And what's important is a quorum of the group must be participating within the jurisdiction. It must be within the County of San Diego. All votes must be roll call, which is something you're familiar with. So those are the standard rules. And again, like I said, they've not been used very often. There's no limit on the number of you using the rules or any time, which is important when I get to the new bill. So that's good for flexible, but again, it's very restrictive in that you have to call in from a location that's available to the public. It needs to be on the agenda. Anybody can show up or participate from that location. That's the call in. So again, that's a rule that we could potentially use. We're talking with your director, Andrew Strong, about potentially doing some satellite locations for you at a county facility. So that would be better than somebody's home. But again, these are logistics we need to work out if this is what we need. Otherwise, we're going to recommend you meet in person. Commissioner Evans? You're on mute.
I apologize. In terms of having access to the public, I don't know what county office, well, there's one county office that's here in North County that I'm aware of, but would a library suffice or a school's situation suffice in terms of public access to a commissioner?
Yeah, there's no limitation on the type of location. That's, again, it's just something we need to talk logistics about. Is there a good phone service, or if you're going to do it by internet, like, does it make sense for this location? So it's more of a logistical question rather than legal. Legally, you can call in from anywhere.
Okay, thank you.
Right. So I'm just going to briefly touch on what you're doing today, which you all seem to be very familiar with, which is AB 361. And this was the law that was passed when it appeared the governor's executive orders allowing us to waive some of the Brown Act requirements was going to expire. And so the state legislature adopted this procedure, which you're using today, to allow suspension of these normal rules that I just went over during a declared state of emergency. Back in October, the governor announced that the state of emergency would expire as of February 28th, 2023. Well, that's in 7 days. And he has not changed his mind. So we're all anticipating that this law, which will technically be on the books until the end of this year, will not be effective because the declared state of emergency, which is a condition for using this law, will no longer be in effect. Now, if some new emergency is declared by the state before the end of the year, then this rule could potentially be used. And also, I've been made aware that the state legislature introduced a bill this month to extend this law through 2025. But again, that law hasn't been passed. That's just a bill, so it has been passed. But there's the potential the legislature might extend this. So just as an FYI, if there's another declared state of emergency and this bill gets extended, we could come back to these rules. As you know, you have to renew your findings every 30 days. You have to notice your meetings. You have to stop the meetings if there's a glitch in the internet or the distribution. You're supposed to make sure you're protecting everybody's rights so that people can access the meeting, things like that. You guys are all doing very well. I'm understanding you've been following it. But again, today's your last meeting under these rules. So now I'm going to get to the new set of rules. This was a new bill that was passed by the legislature last year. It's AB 2449, and it went into effect in January. So this is an option for you to consider. You don't have to use these, but I'm letting you know about your options. So similarly, this was a bill to try to give, like this last one I talked about, 361, is to give public officials an opportunity to call in without letting the public come to their call-in location. Right? That's the big hiccup or the big concern most people have with the standard rules. So you can do that with certain rules. So first, you have to have a quorum of your group in person. So whatever your minimum quorum requirement is, has to be in person. So only a few people can really use this on any particular meeting. The public must be able to participate remotely, just like whoever is calling in, so that you have to have that technological ability for the meeting. And again, like the previous rule, if there's a disruption in the technology, you have to stop the meeting. Some new things were added based on some concerns from the public. One, they want to know if someone else is in the room with you. So you have to disclose if you're the public official calling in to the meeting, you have to say if anybody else is in the room that's an adult, 18 or older. Also, the public has been unhappy with the blank screens on Zoom or Teams or whatever the technology is. So if you're a public official, you can't blink your screen if you are calling in. Also, the public has to be able to participate. They can call in, or they can do a live stream. They can do either. You don't have to see their faces, but the public officials, you do. Now, if you have to cough or something, like you need to shut it down for a second or two, that's fine. But basically throughout the meeting, you need to be live like this. You can't be showing a blank screen, an icon, or anything like that. So that's new. You have to have a good reason for calling in. And the legislature has given us two reasons. One is called just cause, and the other is emergency circumstances. They're somewhat similar, so don't be surprised if you see some overlap, but there's a distinction that we'll get to and why it's important. So just cause is you've got a child care or a caregiving need of a specified person. And when I say specified, it's because it's not everybody. It's going to be in your immediate family or like a generation above or generation below. So your grandparents, your parents, your spouse, your domestic partner, your children. That's it. You can't use this rule for cousins and uncles and second cousins and your best friend, right? You have a contagious illness, good reason not to show up at the meeting. You have a need related to a physical or mental disability, or lastly, your agency has asked you to travel on official business. So if the county asks you to travel as a member of the HRC for business, then you can use it, but it's not for any other type of travel. The other type of reason is called emergency circumstances. And this is when you have a physical or family emergency that prevents you from participating in person. So the reason there's a good distinction between these two, even though it overlaps when it comes to health, it matters, is that just cause you can just do it. You just need to let the chair know and let Andrew know that you're not going to be, you're going to be calling in. But for emergency circumstances, the group needs to vote to allow you to participate. So just cause specifically says you need to give a general description. Emergency circumstances, the law says you have to give an explanation, but the emergency circumstances requires a vote. So if there's enough time, we can add it to the agenda as a vote that Commissioner so-and-so needs to appear because of telephonically due to emergency circumstances. However, the Brown Act, this law exempted it from the Brown Act requirements of the agenda. So if you miss that deadline to put it on the agenda, you're okay. The other thing we're recommending, and you'll see this on the Board of Supervisors agendas as of today, you'll see a standing item for voting on teleconference participation as needed. So if nobody needs to, that agenda item won't occur, but it's a standing item on the Board of Supervisors agenda. So that's another way to deal with that situation. There's also a limitation on the number of times you can use these rules. So this, bear with me, it's a little complicated, and I don't know what the legislature was thinking when they did this, but it's awkward. I'm not going to lie. Just cause, any one commissioner can only use just cause twice in a calendar year. So if the Chair Nash needed to use just cause 2 times period in 2023, 2 times in 2024, et cetera. Using the whole law collectively, like looking at just cause and emergency circumstances, you can use it no more than 3 consecutive months or 20% of your regular meetings in a year. If you meet 10 or more times, your group meets 12. So you can go more than that. If you were a group that met 9 or less, you could only use collectively just cause and emergency circumstances twice per year, period. Now, the weird thing is 12 times or 20% of your meetings is 2.25 meetings. So I'm assuming that means you can round up. The legislature doesn't say, so that means you can use it 3 times. That would be my recommendation. Anyway, so very, very limited use of this new law. One, you have to have a good reason that's usually related to a physical illness, a caregiver issue, contagious illness, unless you're traveling for the county. Otherwise, no other reasons count. And 2, you have to keep track of how many times you use this rule. Once you cap out, you're done. You can't use it. So if you can't appear, you can't appear in person, and you just won't be attending the meeting. And then lastly, you have to make sure you have a quorum physically at the meeting. So it's really important to give staff, both Cindy and Andrew, a heads up if you think you won't be at the meeting, so we can make sure we always have a quorum present at the meeting. So I'm going to stop there and see if anybody has any questions, because this is a lot and you need to consider whether or not you want to use these. And I will tell you, some groups I've been giving this training to, they're like, this is not going to work for us. We're just not even going to bother. Right. And some are like, yeah, we'll use it as needed. The Board of Supervisors is going to use it. But other groups are absolutely have told me no. So, and that's okay. I mean, it's completely your choice. So I'll go to Commissioner Clark.
My apologies, I'm trying to come off of mute. Thank you for the brief. I think that this is very helpful in just kind of shaping our level of participation and our ability to participate going forward. So my question to you is, have considerations been made about these types of boards and commissions, because we're a volunteer force, right? And as this board has discussed pretty intensely and comprehensively, all of us work. So have any considerations around that been made in a way that is more inclusive, of folks outside of the geographical type considerations. And, you know, I recognize that you are the messenger, so there are no darts being thrown at you, my friend. But I do wonder if there have been any conversations around that, because transparently, as it stands, I'm probably going to have to resign from the board because I have to work and I can't take that time, right? So I just wonder if there have been any conversations or you can provide any insights around that for us, please and thank you.
Yeah, I can answer that on two levels. One is the state legislature. So as this law was being considered and they were getting comments from the public based on what's happened through the COVID years, there was a discussion, what is the purpose of the Brown Act? The main purpose of the Brown Act is access for the public, not the convenience of the public official. That was the message that came out of the discussions. If you read the legislative history and the committee discussions, that was the balance they were trying to play, is that, yeah, we recognize this is easier for members of the public or the public officials to appear telephonically. And there are a lot of volunteer groups across the state. So most groups that meet under the Brown Act are these volunteer type groups. You have city councils, board of supervisors, school board, right? They all are the main legislative bodies that you would think of, but they all have committees and subcommittees and groups that they create. So most of them are these volunteer type groups, if you look at the sheer number of them. But that was what the state decided was, look, it's about the public getting access, and they want to see their public officials. They want to see them face to face. They want that. While the convenience of the teleconferencing is great, we're not going to get rid of it, but we need to make sure the public officials are in person. And that's what came out at the state level. At the county level, what we're trying to do is be practical. We don't want to lose our good volunteers. There are discussions you can have. So as a group, one, you can discuss a different time, so it's easier for all of you to meet. A lot of volunteer groups meet in the evenings. I know that's because of work. So before I came to the county, I was working with a lot of cities in the area. All of the ones I worked with met at night, because except for Coronado met in the afternoon. But most cities, their volunteer groups all met in the evening because that's just easier. That is a discussion you can have. Two, we are having discussions about what we can do because of, I understand that yours is a huge group. Yours is very different than most groups at the county. Most groups are between, I'd say 5 and 10 or 5 and 12. You're upwards of, you're supposed to be, if you were fully staffed, 31 members, and that's huge. There are very few other groups of that size. So we are looking at potentially having remote locations from another county facility so that you can meet these requirements, but still also some of you might be able to just travel a short distance rather than coming all the way downtown or to the COC, which is in Kearney Mesa, where most of our facilities are. So that's what I can tell you. State level, county level, we're just trying to deal with the law. Remember, this is a state law. It applies to everybody. This is not something that the county's imposed on you. It's the state.
I sincerely appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. Commissioner Griffin-Jones.
Thanks again for this presentation. I had a question about the traveling for the work for the agency.
Yes.
So if like we had to travel for nonprofits we worked for, that wouldn't count as a
Nope.
as a reason for missing the in-person?
Correct. It would only be if the county asked you to travel as a member of the HRC to do something.
Mm-hmm.
So otherwise, if you're for work travel, you can't call in. Well, I mean, let me take that back. You can call in and not be counted toward a quorum. You can't participate, but you can just listen. Like,
Mm-hmm.
counted if you wanted to listen into a meeting. But if you wanted to be considered a member showing up presenting, you'd have to use the old rules, which means we'd have to post your location on the agenda, and the public would be able to participate from whatever location you're calling in from.
So like say for instance, if my work had me doing work in, in Oakland, I would be able to call in from Oakland, and I'm at like a coffee shop. I'd be able to call in from Oakland and my vote would count because you all would be able to post that publicly, or
if we list that coffee shop as a public location, yes, but you have to like physically see. The weird thing is like you're posting just as like any other location, which means a physical copy of the agenda has to be up 72 hours. So the coffee shop's gonna have to agree to putting up the agenda, and it's the internet agenda. So again, that's why it's really hard to do the old rules or the standard rules, because you have to have agreement from the location from which you're calling in at least 72 hours before, so you can post that agenda. Yes.
Okay. So in this, so I would be able to call from a coffee shop in Oakland if I got 72 hours, if I posted an agenda there, 72 hours. And then I was able to call in from there via the internet, my camera's on, my vote would be able to count.
Yeah, well, technically you don't need it with the standard rules. You don't have to do a camera. It could just be phone. But if some of the public wants to come and participate with you, you're gonna have to share your technology, whatever that is, so that they can, your phone or your laptop, so that they can participate as well. So that's where it gets, again, tricky.
It's okay. It's all good.
Yeah.
I appreciate you for going through
You
that.
can just
Mary.
call in and listen and not be considered counted toward the quorum. You can't participate. You can't, because then you're not a member of the HRC. You're just listening as a member of the public. That's okay. You can just listen.
Okay.
But if quorum issues.
I have one more question. I'm sorry. Some of us, we're in family structures that don't look like, like somebody's biological mom or biological dad being like their father. Some of our communities, the death of an uncle or an auntie, or some of us are caring for children that are not our biological children. I wanted to know, like, because it said you mentioned earlier childcare or caregiving need an immediate family. I wanted to know if we'd be asked to provide any proof, or if our like decolonized family structures would be honored as a just cause if we need to arrange care.
That's a good question. All I can say is the law says. The law says you have to give an explanation. We're not here to double check you, investigate like that. You just have to meet the law requirements. And it says grandparents, parents, spouse, domestic partner, children. To me, that means adopted or biological. But if it's somebody else's children, it's probably not going to count. If it's someone beyond that limited family scope, it's another family member, it's not going to count. So we're going to take you at your word. We're not double checking. We're not asking for birth certificates or, proof of family, any of that. But you do need to state the reason to the chair so that we know, and Andrew, so we know. But it's got to be one of the ones that are allowed. If it's not one of those reasons, you won't be able to use the new rules.
Okay, thanks.
This is Commissioner Corey. My question is, if I am traveling overseas and I'm more than willing to advertise the location, even the room, would that be okay?
Yes, as long as you follow the rules.
No problem then. Thank you.
Yeah, it's not limited. It's not limited to the state of California.
Good.
Okay. And I did this last slide, I forgot to say, is I gave Andrew has this. If you need it, there's a checklist. So you can compare the rules, this new rule, and then a chart kind of looking at the three different sets of rules. The standard rules, AB 361, which is the emergency rules, and then the 2449, which is the new rules under just cause or emergency circumstances. So I just want to make sure you guys have those tools as well. Commissioner Ismail?
Yes, good morning. Thank you so much for the information and for this discussion, very helpful. For my personal situation, so I'm representing the International Rescue Committee. I don't anticipate that I will need, to call and for a replacement for this situation. Attending this meeting, participating is a priority. So never needed to do that before, hopefully not in the future, but however, my understanding when I joined, to let our executive director and the deputy director know if for whatever reason I cannot join, that one of them will make the arrangement to join. Would that still be the case, or something would impact that option? Thank you.
Okay, you mean, I'm sorry. Are you asking if you can have an alternative in your stead?
So that was my understanding when I joined, because, the International Rescue Committee, we have a seat, and then so I am, representing in making sure to always attend. But however, my understanding when I joined, the senior management let me know that for whatever reason I won't be able to join, to let them know ahead of time so they can actually communicate with the commission, and then have someone sit, in that seat for that day, for example. So I just wanted to make sure if this is still the case.
That is not something with the Brown Act. That's an issue with the commission itself. And I did dig down into your rules, but I can't remember this one. Smith or Andrew, do you have the answer? Do our rules allow for alternates?
I believe that the only people that can have alternates are the DA and the sheriff.
Okay.
But I would like Smith to confirm that if she doesn't know, we'll make sure
check.
to confirm that with everybody. But I'm pretty sure it's only the district attorney and the sheriff as written in the bylaws.
That's my understanding as well, Andrew. I'll have to double check as well, but and we can possibly look into how we can make that possible going forward as well.
Yeah, that could be a change. If it's not allowed, you could look at your bylaws and have the board of supervisors approve that change. Because that is definitely a legal option. It just means your governing documents just have to allow for it. All right, I don't see any other. Oh, one more question. Commissioner Griffin-Jones.
Yeah, thanks so much again for this presentation. I wanted to know if there's any advocacy or anything we could lift up as a commission and to the state about feedback around this, because what it is seeming like is that a lot of these rules are like negatively like impacting like folks with marginalized identities and people who are historically and systemically not allowed access. I mean, for instance, we've heard from folks that have lifted up, needing to survive capitalism, and that prohibiting them from being able to be in a physical place to be able to join. I'm just thinking a lot about, us maybe using some of our power to lift up how, certain commissioners not being able to make it to represent the very communities and constituencies, right, that we're trying to represent in this space. Just wanted to get an idea from you about if we'd be able to do something like that, like advocate or give a recommendation on how this is impacting our commission.
Yeah, you always have the opportunity to reach out to your state legislatures, your assemblymen and your senators, and let them know. Anybody can do that about any law that's impacting them. Secondly, you can let your board of supervisors know, whatever district you're in the county, let them know the impact to you, and then they can then raise it to the level, because the county has a lobbyist group, but they're directed by the board of supervisors. So you need to get the support of the supervisors if you want the county to lobby for something. So those are your two options. You talk to the state directly and say, this is how it's, I'm a local public official, that I'm a volunteer. This is how these changes are affecting me. Or you talk to your board of supervisors. So, and then
and Randall, we also have a legislative subcommittee on the HRC, and this could be a topic for them to bring to Caroline's office. So that's one way that it can help to influence it. I see Commissioner Anaya's hand up.
Yeah, not to dig too much into this, but as we start having the discussion about when we do meet, and it's clear, obviously there's one, the desire, finding that balance with the public in general wants to be able to access their appointed or elected officials directly versus, the ability for those who volunteer on these groups to be able to serve, with all their, conflicting schedules of work and family life and all that. Finding that balance, I understand it is not always easy. And in many cases has created sacrifices on both ends for folks, which, can be unfair that those sacrifices exist and it creates some challenges. Just as we move forward, we're not going to resolve this overnight, and those challenges will continue to exist. So I would ask our commission to potentially consider, similar to our meet and greets, and I know this creates an additional layer of work, but a potential solution to access and making it fair and not putting the burden all on one group or another group is potentially shifting of our meetings to various locations throughout the county. It's something, and so I guess, Randall, what I'm asking is if, assuming that we follow all the bylaws, all the Brown Act rules of posting, the location, and all that, that should not be an issue, other than it creates another logistical piece that we would have to work on. But would that be allowable and maybe a good strategy to alleviate some of the access issues by rotating the meeting? It's not a perfect solution. But
right, and that is something Andrew has raised with me and Smith. It is being explored. So that's all I can say is you got to figure out what works best for your group. The other last piece of information, I sorry for Nicholas shares, these new rules about emergency circumstance and just cause, they will also sunset. They are only available through the end of 2025 unless the legislature takes action. So keep that in mind as well. After 2025, starting in 2026, it's only the standard rules, that first couple of slides I showed you. All right, I have one more topic for all of you. Andrew asked me to cover this, and this is just a reminder, and I think several of you are new, and I just want to make sure everybody has the resources and understand the rules by which you conduct yourselves. This chart here is showing kind of a level of hierarchy of these rules. First is the board policy A74. This is what the Board of Supervisors created for all the groups under that it has created, that the county created. So it's a standard rules for everybody except for the planning and land use groups. If you're familiar with them, they have policy I1, but it's a similar type of document. Then you look at your authorizing authority, and that was resolution 20-054 by the Board of Supervisors. So that has another layer of rules for you. You adopted bylaws. That's the next level. That was also approved by the Board of Supervisors. And then you have your own procedural rules, which is a document called the Rules of Order. And in those, and in your approved bylaws, you've adopted, you've adopted Rosenberg's, but I've thrown in Robert's Rules of Order here on this slide because policy A74 says you use Robert's rules if you haven't adopted something else. So that's just a general for all groups in the county, not for you, because you guys adopted the Rosenberg rules, and I'll get into the difference there in a minute. So policy A74 again is for every board, commission, group, committee that the Board of Supervisors has created, minus the land use groups. That's policy I1. So it talks about conflicts of interest. It talks about the Brown Act, certain board policies that apply to your groups, the purpose of having advisory groups like this. What are your training requirements? That's all in there. It talks about membership nominations, how you fill vacancies, talks about subcommittees, Brown Act, what officers you need, if you have budgets, how you handle minutes, how you make recommendations to county departments or to the Board of Supervisors, talks about your minimum bylaw requirements for officers' minutes, voting, all of that. So all of that is just kind of general. Like I said, it's very general because it applies to a variety of boards and commissions in the county, but that's where you start. And then you look to your authorizing authority for your organization. It is this board resolution. Some organizations or groups are in a county ordinance, another county resolution. You'll see it. The Board of Supervisors took some action to create your group, and this is where we find your authorization. It restates your purpose, which is to promote positive human relations, respect, and the integrity of every individual, regardless of gender, religion, culture, ethnicity, sexual orientation, age, or citizenship status. Talks about your membership. So that's where you get the 31 members, who they are, how they're appointed, your terms of office, how you fill vacancies. The two officers you must have are chair and vice chair, but you can pick additionals as needed. It authorizes your group to establish your own rules of procedure, which you have. It talks about your quorum requirements, which is a majority of currently appointed members of the HRC. My understanding is I can't remember how many, but you don't have 31 today appointed, you have 20 something. So whatever the majority of that number is how many you need to meet in a meeting. And it requires a majority of the membership to carry any motion or proposal. Your minutes are supposed to go to the clerk of the board. All your meetings, including your subcommittees, are supposed to be per the Brown Act. It also has some restrictions or some guidance on how to create subcommittees. You have to have at least 3 on a subcommittee, and one of them must be an HRC member. Then you've adopted your bylaws, like I said, which were confirmed by the board of supervisors. And that some of this is repetitive to the resolution, but all this information is in there. It talks about your membership, your officers, a little more clarification on your subcommittees. You have to have 3 to 7, so they don't want them too big. It talks about removal of a subcommittee member if you've got unexcused absences. Again, confirms you can have rules of order, and this is where you've adopted Rosenberg's rules of order. You can't have proxy or absentee voting, which is true of the Brown Act too. You need a quorum of the HRC to meet and to carry a motion. A quorum of subcommittee is a little different because it's a majority of who's appointed, and a majority of the members who are present can carry any motion. So if you have a subcommittee of 7, you have 5 who show up, you only need 3 to adopt the motion. You have to have a regular schedule, and that is posted on the HRC website. I've noticed your members are to take the AB 1234 ethics training that's provided by the FPPC every 2 years, or you can go to the Institute of Law of Local Government. That's another website that has that training. And you're supposed to abide by a code of conduct. And I've just kind of summarized it briefly here, but it talks about being accountable to your rules, acting professionally, refraining from discrimination or harassment, and then acting timely and openly, meaning follow the Brown Act. So that's what's in your bylaws. Then you've adopted your rules of order, which talks about, again, arrive on time, treat others with respect. This is where you limit your talk time to 3 minutes per member, because you guys have a very large group, so you can get your meeting done on time. You can abstain without giving any explanation. If you're using a virtual meeting type functions, don't use the chat function. Make your motions clear, and then you're supposed to end at the end time. If you do not finish your items, you're to continue with the next meeting rather than making the meeting go long. And I think that's obviously because of all your professional responsibilities and commitment. So those are your rules of order. And like I said, you've adopted Rosenberg's rules to kind of as a catch-all for anything else that aren't covered by the documents I just went through. You've probably heard of Robert's rules, and those are been around for a long time. It's a thick book of rules. Rosenberg took those. He's a judge in California. He's also been a board supervisor. He's been an attorney. Like, he's been in a lot of situations, and he took those rules, Robert's rules, took out the substance of them, the ones we use the most, and got rid of all the archaic stuff. And now he has this 10-page document that's available to anyone. And I've included the link, which it's a much, much better document to use than Robert's rules. And I will guarantee, if someone says they know the Roberts rules, more than likely they know a summary of the Roberts rules, and they haven't read the book from cover to cover. Even I've never done that. So they're easy to understand. They're for smaller groups. They're pretty good. I definitely recommend Rosenberg. So I think you've done well. But it goes through in that 10-page document. It talks about all your motions, talks about some decorum issues and things like that. But the main point is motions. Every one of these listed on this slide are discussed in a paragraph or two, so you can get some more detail about it. But basically, you have a basic motion, you second it. Do you have any motions to amend it? If you want to substitute the motion, those are the motions most of the time you're dealing with. If you have a motion to amend or motion to substitute, you have to deal with those before you get to the main motion, right? A motion for reconsideration is something you can only do at the meeting where you've made the original motion. That's a good clarification, because sometimes I get that question about, well, can I reconsider it 2 months later? No, you have to do a new motion. You have to agendize it again under the Brown Act. So a motion for reconsideration can only be done at your meeting, and only by someone who is in the majority of their first vote. So that's something to be important. There are other procedural motions that are talked about. These are ones that don't require any debate. Are you going to adjourn? Are you going to recess? You're going to fix the time to adjourn. If you're going to table something till later in the meeting, motion to limit debate, if it's going on too long, things like that. Those are not, you don't need any discussion on those. You can just vote. And then lastly, there's a group of votes or types of motions that you need 2/3 vote. And that's because you're cutting someone off. And those you're going to need more of you to agree to this kind of motion. So if you're going to limit the debate, if you're going to close nominations for chair, vice chair, whatever the position is, if you're going to object to consideration of the question, meaning you don't even want to get to the vote on the main motion, or if you want to suspend your rules. So those are the basics of Rosenberg's, and that's to supplement anything else that have come in the rules that we've discussed. So that's a lot of information, but those are, like I said, you should be familiar with Board Policy A74. You should be familiar with the Resolution 20054, which created your group. You should be familiar with your bylaws. You should be familiar with the rules of conduct or rules of order. And then all else fails, pull out Rosenberg's. And again, that's only 10 pages, a 10-page document, which is much better than Robert's rules, in my opinion. But anyway, that's my second topic. Does anybody have any questions on your procedural rules?
And I did see Vice Chair's hand up, and I think he dropped off and came back on. So Nicole, I'm not sure if you're there, but if you would like to speak. Okay. I'm not seeing any other folks' hands up. Chair Nash.
Okay, let's go to agenda item 9, future in-person HRC meetings.
Thank you very much, Randall.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stop sharing.
So do we want to talk about future in-person HRC meetings in March?
We do, Chair Nash, and I would just like to start with a recommendation for staff on the future in-person meeting starting in March. We'd like to recommend that we have the first one in March at the County Operations Center. It's a large room, relatively central location, and have all the audio visual needs. But then we'd like to recommend that you debate on your start time, whether knowing there's a lot of discussion of whether you should have it in the middle of the day or whether you have it after hours, to discuss on that, and whether after 5 might be better for folks who work during the day. But the next decision point might be whether we want to rotate it up in different parts of the region, whether that's north, whether that's east, whether that's south and central. And if you want to allow staff to find those locations, we'd be more than happy to figure out where those locations can be, and make sure we have all the capabilities to host if we would decide to rotate it.
Any comments?
I have a question.
I think Commissioner Corey, you're on mute, and then.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. What I was going to suggest is we have it central. Let's have it at the Pacific Highway regularly, because it may be very difficult for people from the south to come to the North County or to East County, etc., and so on. And this way, one location is good for everybody, I think. That's a suggestion. Also, my other suggestion is to have it evenings, especially for people that are working. There are many commissioners who are working during the day. I know that Warsan had to resign because of that conflict that she had. And accordingly, I suggest to make it between, let's say, 6 to 8 in the evening. Once a month, it should not be really a big problem.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I have a comment. My hand's up.
Okay, and then Commissioner Clark, Commissioner Evans, Commissioner Clark, in that order.
All right, thank you. I am in agreement that probably we should have evening meetings, but I really would prefer the county office. I think it's a little bit more centralized than going down to all the way into San Diego. And there's ample parking with the county operations. If we're talking about the same place that I'm thinking of, in Kearney Mesa. And the
Fairlyville.
rooms are set up like auditorium, so it's enough space, and it's oriented towards having committee meetings and discussion. I'm in agreement with everything that Commissioner Corey is saying, except for the location. And there's parking.
Commissioner Clark?
Sorry, my iPad will not allow me to go off of mute without changing the configuration. My apologies. Question, what is the date for next meeting? And the second part of that is I agree with the Pacific Coast Highway, even if you're coming from the extreme south, as I would be, even getting up to the county building is a solid 35, 40 minutes drive. So I would prefer, if we're asking for preferences, maybe a library or some other similar facility in that area of the Pacific Coast, because that's about even. But wherever it is, it will be what it is. But mainly my question was, when is the date for our next meeting, to Andrew's comments?
And thanks, Commissioner Clark. The next date is March 21st. Commissioner Roberts, and I believe Commissioner Ismail may be next.
If you recognize me, I'll go. Wherever you have it in San Diego County, living in Valley Center, it's going to be kind of a pain to get there, but I'm committed to do what we need to do to keep the group together. So, you know, County Operations Center is a 45-minute drive from here, like it is north for Commissioner Clark. So I understand the problem, believe me. That's all I wanted to say.
If it will be great if we have a designated location, consistent time, that it will be wonderful. And also my question is, should we also consider accessibility for the individuals from the public? Yes, of course it's important as a driver, you know, like we don't want to struggle with parking, but how about, like the individuals who are, we're hoping that we welcome in, to join our meetings. Like, is that, is there like the transit, bus stations, like something closer to them within walking distance, maybe from certain communities. So I would just, suggest that we consider, or at least, add it to our consideration in terms of the location.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Great comments.
This is Commissioner Khoury again. Can we forget about or change the third Tuesday of every month? And the reason being is that if we do it evenings, some of us have conflict with other meetings that are community-based, etc. That's a question to everybody.
You want to change it? I need through the chair. I didn't understand what he's saying.
Well, what I'm saying is Andrew mentioned the 21st of March, which is the third Tuesday.
Right.
And now if we decide on an evening, the third Tuesday of every month, for instance, is the Central Democratic Party Committee, of which I was elected recently. It goes from 5:30 till around 8 or 9 in the evening. So basically, I won't be able, it will be a major conflict for me personally to go with that if we decide a late evening meeting.
Okay, I'm looking at, I can't do second Tuesdays because I have school board meetings, and I can't do Mondays because I have, again, school board, the state of California school board meetings. Plus, I have different activities during the day. So I don't know, are we gonna like start having Sunday or Saturday meetings?
No, maybe a Wednesday or a Thursday or a Friday. I don't know, but I mean,
And what I could do,
That's-
Chair Nash, and HRC, we could put together a poll to be able to poll all the commissioners to see when the best date and time is. And then we can go from there and try to schedule a meeting in March. And what we'll do is we'll just post meeting calendar to be determined, or something that affects something that meets the Brown Act requirements, until we flesh out what that date could be. That way you're not debating it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, we do know, if I can make a comment, we do know one thing, that we have never missed quorum at this time and this date and this time. So we got to start from there. But we have had complaints from the public about accessibility on this day and this time. So, but that's a fact. So we can start from there. Could we do the March meeting this date and this time? For
My
March?
suggestion would be that we do the March meeting as a schedule
Mhm.
and then have Andrew put together
A poll,
figure out the best going forward.
right?
So it would be March 21st.
Yes, at 10,
At the County Operations Center.
yes.
Okay, I would.
Usually
probably
plenty of
be
parking
arrive-
down
I would be
Excuse-
arriving,
Excuse me. Commissioner Evans?
yes, I would be arriving late because I have an 8:30 meeting with the Rising Star students.
Okay. All
on
right,
Tuesday morning.
okay. Any more discussion?
Is this the county building on Pacific Highway?
Yes.
there. No, it's the one.
No, it's not actually, Chair Nash. So there's two
Attorney.
discussions that were happening. One was a recommendation for the County Administration Center, and that's the one that's downtown at the Waterfront Park. The other facility that's central is in Kearny Mesa, and that's the County Operations Center. That's where the Planning Commission normally meets. They have a huge conference room there that we could use, and allow plenty of access, plenty of parking for the public, that kind of thing. So those are the
it
two
is on the
options.
Overland Avenue.
That's correct.
Does this require an action, a vote, or what?
I think we should, Chair Nash, and I think somebody just should make the motion, whether it should be the County Administration Center at, whether it's keep the same date and time for March, or is it at the County Operations Center? So if somebody would like to make one of those two motions.
Commissioner Roberts.
I'll
I'd like to
make
make the
a-
motion.
Wait a minute, Commissioner Roberts?
I'd like to make the motion that we hold the March meeting at the County Operations Center on Kearny Mesa at our normal time, and then determine what we're going to do from there.
Can I get a second?
I'll
Second the
second it.
motion.
Twins here.
All
Call
right,
for
we'll
the
call the
question.
roll.
Okay.
We'll call the roll. Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I was
Do
going
we
to
need
say,
to-
actually, we are twins.
Any more discussion? Let's go with the roll.
Okay, I have a question about.
Okay.
Did we have a thing where if you're 15 minutes late, you're automatically marked absent?
No,
Okay, great. Thank
as long
you.
as you notify us, as long as you notify us ahead of time.
Okay, I'm notifying you right now and I'll notify you again.
Okay, let's call for the roll.
Commissioner Naya,
Aye.
Commissioner Cinnamon Clark,
Hi.
Demographic that they bring up.
Commissioner De Los Rios, Commissioner Elliott Santos,
I abstain.
Commissioner Evans,
Aye.
Commissioner Fowler,
Aye.
Commissioner Garcias, Commissioner Griffin Jones,
Can you repeat the motion?
The motion is to have the next meeting in March at the County Operations Center in Kearney Mesa, and to keep the same date and time as scheduled, which is 10 a.m. at 10 a.m.
Nay,
Did you say no? I'm sorry.
correct. Nay. Mhm.
Commissioner Hassani,
Aye.
Commissioner Hodges,
Aye.
Commissioner Ismail,
Aye.
Commissioner Corey,
Aye.
Sheriff Kelly Martinez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Murray Ramirez, Vice Chair Murray Ramirez, Chair Nash,
Aye.
Commissioner Roberts,
Aye, sir.
Commissioner Vance,
Aye.
Commissioner Villaforte,
Aye.
Dwayne Woodley on behalf of District Attorney Summer Stephan.
Aye.
Madam Chair, that motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item 10, selection process for all officer seats for the chair and the 2 vice chairs. Director Strong, you want to describe it or?
I do. If you give me a second, I will pull up my screen and I want to share the actual
Commissioner Corey
bylaws
has
with
his
you.
hand up.
All right, Chair Nash, can everybody see my screen? Okay, so what I want to do is review the bylaws with you. I'm sorry, the Brown Act. The bylaws with you to talk about the selection process for the officers, the chair and vice chair. And this is supposed to commence annually in March. So we wanted to get a head start and allow for folks to either self-nominate and give them an opportunity to speak today and or at the next meeting. And then we'll commence selection process. So each commissioner will be asked if there is interest in serving as chair or vice chair or both. Each interested commissioner must have at least 1 year remaining on their term. Each interested commissioner will be allowed 3 minutes to inform the commission why they are interested in serving as chair or vice chair or both. At least 10 days prior to the selection meeting, county staff will distribute the application of each interested commissioner together with any additional information an interested commissioner may have submitted for the commission's consideration. At least 7 days prior to the selection meeting, commissioners may submit to the staff 2 names, 1 name for chair and 1 name for vice chair. The same name may be submitted for both offices. No later than 5 days prior to the selection meeting, the commission will receive the names submitted and the number of times each name was submitted. At the selection meeting, the information described above will be presented to the commission, and the commission may make motions to select their chair and vice chair from the names on the list. And that is the process, Chair Nash. And I would say for the sake of time, I'm not sure if we want to allow folks to speak today or if we would like to push that until March to allow the rest of the presentations. But I do see Commissioner Corey's hand is up.
My question, first of all, is that we already have 2 vice chairs. Do we submit names for 2 vice chairs or 1 as you indicated? Or as the bylaws say?
All the officers' terms are up. So if you would like to have a different vice chair or chair, you would need to submit names for all folks.
So it's not only 1 vice chair. We can say 2 people for vice chair. Good. Thank you.
That's correct.
Are we doing nominations now or we're gonna wait until?
Let's wait until, I would prefer if we wait until March.
And what we'll do is we'll send this out an email again. We'll send out the process, Chair Nash, that talks about submitting those names to us.
Okay.
And then submitting that back out to the commission so everybody has opportunity to see.
Okay. So our meeting in March will dedicate the majority of the time towards electing our officers.
We have Commissioner Clark's hand up. Sure.
Absolutely. Andrew, is it possible to also send out the terms? Like who's termed out, or just the list, so we're not nominating somebody and putting somebody through any unnecessary.
In a safe environment, but also
Absolutely.
Okay. So we're going to table this. Do we need to take a vote to table this?
We do not.
Okay, all right. Well, let's move on to agenda item 11 with Sheriff Kelly Martinez to speak on in custody deaths. Sheriff Kelly?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Nash and commissioners. I've got Edith Sanchez Cruz here who's going to load a PowerPoint for me. But I want to thank you all for allowing me the time today to kind of let you know about the state of our jails. There's been a lot that has happened in the last year. There's a lot more to be done. I want to make it clear to this commission that I take management of the jails very seriously. It's my responsibility as the sheriff to ensure the safety of everyone who's in our custody, as well as everyone who works in our facilities. And I'm absolutely dedicated to doing that and to improving our jail system in San Diego County. So I want to start with the first slide. Just a brief overview. We have 7 facilities right now. Rock Mountain isn't on this photo. We are refurbishing a facility that was given to us from the federal government. We had been leasing the land, and the building was used as a incarceration center for federal prisoners. We've been working for the last few years to get that one renovated so that we can use it for state use. The George Bailey detention facility that you see there is in terrific need of renovation. And when the Rock Mountain facility is finished, we'll be able to move some of the individuals from the George Bailey facility to Rock Mountain, where we can then begin work at the George Bailey facility. We've encumbered about $50 million for the improvements at the George Bailey facility. The Vista detention facility that you see on the left, I think, is our jail that's in the worst condition, in my opinion. It's about 41, 42 years old. It was built over time. Additions were added. I'm sorry, the Vista jail is on the bottom, not the top left, it's the bottom left. That jail, right now, we're doing about a $1 million study to identify the needs of rebuilding that facility and making it a better facility for, honestly, for the way that we need to incarcerate people today. So those are our facilities. There's a lot of infrastructure needs. We've done some improvements to the infrastructure that frankly cannot wait. Things like the wireless systems and the capabilities that will allow for us to provide better medical services through telemedicine and connectivity of all of our medical records, as well as the body-worn cameras that you've seen that we're rolling out, and a number of other improvements and upgrades. The plumbing is in great need of repair in many of the facilities. We lost the HVAC during the summer at our George Bailey facility, and a number of other improvements that are coming. Next slide, please. I wanted to talk to you. It's my understanding that this commission was interested in touring the site of our jail where we experienced the most in custody deaths last year. So as you can see, San Diego Central Jail is where we had 9 deaths last year. That's the facility I think that this commission might most benefit from touring, but of course that will be up to you. I'm happy to facilitate the tours that we can for where your interest lies. This is just a horrendous number, in my opinion. I'm absolutely committed to turning this around. We have had 1 death this year so far, Mr. Thurston. We believe that was an overdose, a fentanyl overdose. We're investigating where that fentanyl came from that we believe he overdosed from. We believe it was supplied by other individuals who are in custody, and we're tracking down where they obtained the drug. So we're working on that investigation right now. As I move through these slides, I'm happy to take questions, or I can wait until the end of the presentation, whatever the commission prefers. Next slide, please. This is our progress report. As you all know, we received the state audit last February. We've done a lot related to the recommendations of that audit. We've done more than just the audit recommended in the last year. However, this is sort of our timeline of some of the things that we did. Some of the work that we did last year really focused on identifying the medical, where we were falling short with providing the right medical care and wellness to the people who are in our custody. We've, as I said, revamped a lot of our telemedicine, a lot of our connectivity between medical services, not only within our jails, but pre-custody and post-custody, and understanding medical conditions of people when they come into our facilities and providing them the medical care from the very minute they enter our facility. And part of that is a better screening process, mental health and medical screening at intake. We do urine screening at intake now that identifies if someone has drugs on board and what those drugs are, so that we could properly provide them the support they need so that their withdrawal symptoms are lessened. We also are doing wellness checks. We have about 1/10 of our population that frankly are unable to care for themselves. So we go directly with a multidisciplinary team directly to their cell once or twice a week, and we check on their status, make sure they're eating, make sure they're seeing a doctor or medical or mental health professional regularly as they should be, make sure their cell is clean and that it is cared for, that they're being cared for. This has, I think, made a significant difference in the outcomes, the health outcomes of people who are in our custody. We've also started providing naloxone directly to people in our custody. I think we've had at least 12 incidents where people have saved the lives of other individuals in our custody through use of that naloxone. You probably are already aware that all of our staff carries naloxone. So I think that's been a game changer as we identify where the drugs are coming from and how they're getting into our facilities. We have had fewer of those naloxone deployments in the last few weeks. I think that's an indicator of the lessening amount of drugs that are getting into our facilities because of increased investigations that we've been doing, searches. We've done some massive searches and identifying where the drugs are at in our facilities and removing those drugs. Next slide, please. This is just more on the drugs in our jail, some of the methods that they're coming in. Mostly they are coming in through the people who are coming into our custody through body carrying techniques, either by swallowing the drugs or inserting them in their rectums or other body cavities. We have a number of ways that we detect these drugs before they come in. We're also finding that drugs are being dropped in public areas serviced by our work crews. Items are being thrown into, I'll talk about staff here in a minute, but items are being thrown over fences and things like that. We are seeing that increase in drug prices in custody because there is a market for drugs in our custody. As the price increases, that shows us that fewer drugs are getting in and that it's harder to find. A lot of smuggling we've identified is being coordinated through outside entities for not only money, but status in the jail, gang activity. There's some extortion that occurs, a lot of other activity that is increasing the drugs and the smuggling that occurs in our jail facilities. So a lot of this takes a lot of investigative work. We've got a full-time investigative team that works on identifying the drug activity in our jails. As far as staff, I know there's been a lot of concern that we're not willing to search our staff. That's absolutely not true. We have the ability and the opportunity to search our staff. I'm committed to making sure drugs don't get in the jails, however that occurs. Although I also need to make sure that our resources are being used to stop drugs where they're coming in. Our investigations and our data and evidence is showing that it's predominantly coming in through the people who are coming into our custody. So I'm using staff time to make sure that those searches are conducting. If there is an indication that staff is involved, we will absolutely pursue that and investigate that and act appropriately. As you've seen in the last few weeks, we have arrested some of our own deputies, which I think we need to be kept accountable, held accountable, and that's something I'm willing to do if that's what's necessary. Next slide, please. So this is just some of the improvements. We have much more accountability. We've allowed CLRB, we signed an MOA last year with CLRB for the director to come to all death scenes. We have built partnerships with Health and Human Resources right now, or Health and Human Services, I'm sorry. Right now we're in a healthcare work group with them. We want to look at best practices for delivering healthcare in our facilities. We still need staff. We are severely understaffed in some key positions. Some of that is medical and mental health care positions with some of our deputy staff and security facilities. We've improved our intake processes. We have more narcotic detection and interdiction that involves the use of canines, body scanners, better processing of our mail. And then we've also got the naloxone, as I said, the availability of that in our custody. We're improving our technology and infrastructure, and the wellness checks, as I articulated earlier, are really a game changer for us as far as identifying health issues with our population. Next slide, please. We still have a lot to do. We have more challenges probably facing us moving forward than the last year. Some of the things that we changed in the last year was our policies, our procedures, the things that we're doing as humans, but a lot of what we need to do still has to do with infrastructure. It has to do with money. It has to do with a long time planning process that takes time as far as identifying locations. For instance, if we build a new Vista jail, where are we going to put it? We need to get an architecture on board. We need to identify what we need in that facility, identify funding, and all those things. That all takes time. The infrastructure at the George Bailey is in process, but that's still taking much longer than we had anticipated and expected. And we haven't even talked about the central jail and all of the work that needs to be done there. We are on our way to accreditation for healthcare. That's through NCCHC, which is a national accreditation, and our contract with NAFCARE is really helping facilitate that, move that forward. Drug detection is probably our highest priority and our highest threat right now in the facilities, and we're working very hard on that. And then more harm reduction, and that's the medicated assisted treatment and some of the other things we can do to address the substance use amongst our population. Next slide, please. I don't know if the commission, if all the commissioners have access to this, but I wanted to make it available to you. The QR code that's there, and also the link up to our website will provide you with our press releases real time when we release them. If you don't already receive those and want to get those when we release them, please feel free to connect with this and get on our distribution. That's just really a quick update on the state of our jails. I'm happy to continue doing these updates, but in the meantime, I'd like to answer any questions. Any questions?
Yes. This is Commissioner Khoury. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the sheriff for the elections. Congratulations. It's always wonderful to see, especially a female in charge of our sheriff department. My question is, the last few weeks, there have been several articles, especially in the San Diego Union Tribune, about that the sheriff's department is taking its time in responding to clear requests, as well as some of the promises made by the sheriff. I have not seen a response from the sheriff department or the sheriff. She may have responded, but I'd like to know what is her answer to those allegations. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Khoury. As far as the clear board, I think we have, honestly, I think the sheriff's department has some work to do in building relationships with the clear board so that they better understand the recommendations that they provide and our response to those recommendations. I've been working on that. The one article that comes to mind is the one related to Ms. Frost and our transgender policy and using the word should instead of shall. The policy states that an individual should be placed in the facility that they identify with or ask to be placed in. We do take that into consideration where they want to be housed, but we also have to look at all of the risk, not only to that individual as a part of a vulnerable population, but also the other individuals in our custody. So we look at when someone is brought into our custody, we ask them their preference of where they want to be housed, and then we do an evaluation. If after that evaluation, we identify their criminal history, their behavior while in custody, and any threat they might pose to the population in that facility, we can offer them housing in that facility still, but most likely it will be housing where they are separated administratively and housed by themselves. So we work with our LGBTQ council to shape our policy related to the transgender population. And that's what we think is the best option to give us some ability to make sure that all populations are safe.
Chair Nash, we have Tom Packard's hand up for a member of the public like to speak. You can have 2 minutes to speak.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, Sheriff Martinez, I'm glad you're there and I hope you'll continue. And my name's Tom Packard. I'm a member of Showing Up for Racial Justice North County. And I and a lot of community advocates have been speaking to the CLERB meetings for over 2 years. And I'm encouraged, first of all, that you said that you're working on your relationship with CLERB. And second, if I understood you about, you said it's not true that you're unwilling to screen all staff. I hope we can get a lot of follow through with you through the CLERB, because the responses from staff at CLERB have been really inadequate, you know, saying things like, there's no evidence that staff have brought drugs in, so you're not going to look at it when you haven't looked for evidence. I know there are some logistical issues, but I really think that's going to be a major factor. And I hope you'll figure out a way to make that work administratively. And I also think it would help. I don't know that the CLERB is seeing the specific data on every example of what method was used to bring drugs in a particular case. So I think having a lot more detail and clarity on the data that you actually have that you can share with CLERB and the community will be really important. And I hope you'll be open to have meetings with people from the community dealing with some of these systems issues like jail deaths. I do think that needs a lot more attention and analysis. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Packard. I appreciate that. I do think that we need to do a better job of communicating, because I think we're doing a lot of things well, but we aren't communicating it as well as we should be to the public. So there's misunderstanding. So I appreciate your comments and your suggestions.
Christina Griffin-Jones, Commissioner Griffin-Jones.
Thank you, Andrew. I wanted to ask what type of the person who like was killed in custody due to lack of access to support for their fentanyl reaction. You said that the sheriffs carry the medication to be able to interrupt like a fentanyl overdose from happening. Why wasn't this person who died in custody given that care?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Frankly, they, people who are using drugs secretly in our facility do everything they can to hide that use from the deputies. And so if they use fentanyl right after a deputy comes by and does a check, or a deputy's in the module, and they are not, with someone who's going to alert us that they've overdosed, it doesn't take much time for that death to occur. So we weren't provided the opportunity to provide this individual with that care. We try very hard, and I'm grateful that in a lot of instances when someone overdoses, someone else who's in custody alerts our staff so that we can respond and give them the medical treatment as quickly as possible. But there are occasions where that doesn't happen. Although I will say, we don't have the medical examiner's report on this particular case yet. Our suspicion is that it was fentanyl related. However, the medical examiner may come back with a different cause of death. So I say with caution that we believe he overdosed, but we don't have that definitively yet. So.
Well, I think that that's a very problematic thing to do, to determine somebody's cause of death before you actually, like, it's been confirmed by a medical examiner. So I really just want to flag that. I want to ask as well, like, how long does it take for someone to no longer be able to be, savable with the kit that helps people who get fentanyl poisoning? Like how long, what's the window in which a deputy could have saved this person?
No, I don't have the answer to that, not being a doctor. I'm sure it's dependent upon the person's drug history, how much they ingested, the size of the individual. I couldn't tell you.
And is there any support being given to this person's family or access to records to this person's family who, because, you know, we don't have a medical examiner report, so I'm going to assume cause of death as well, who was murdered in sheriff custody? Is there any type of support they're receiving, their family is receiving?
Yes, they've been receiving support. Thank you.
What kind of support?
That's private to the family, but they've been receiving support. Thank you.
So I think that it's very interesting that while the care or support or lack thereof that this family is getting is not able to be public, but a non-confirmed cause of death of this individual who was incarcerated and was, because again, we don't have a medical examiner report, was killed in your custody. Thanks for answering my questions. I'm complete.
Any other questions? We have 5 minutes till the end of our meeting today. So if there's any other comments, I would like to say that we have stood up a excellent public safety subcommittee, and they're doing an enormous amount of work on this. And I'd encourage all the commissioners, you're welcome to join or attend those public safety subcommittee meetings and learn more about some of the work that our newly elected deputy sheriff has done. Congratulations again, Sheriff Martinez, for your election. So I invite all commissioners to share, to attend those meetings, and we can get more down and deep. The 2-hour meeting we have once a month does not anywhere get into the work that needs to be done or the questions that need to be answered. But those subcommittees is where the real work gets done. And I'd invite and encourage as many of you, the commissioners, for you to get involved with those subcommittees, particularly the public safety committee, because I have several questions that I'm not going to be able to go in with the sheriff, but I definitely will attend those meetings and get the answers I need. We have 3 minutes left, and I wanted to lift up, first of all, recognize Eleanor Evans for the work she's done with our first ever historical town hall meeting that she convened on February 28th. It was quite a success, a round of success. We're now going to be moving into the central area where our own Commissioner Pedro Anaya is going to be heading up that particular town hall meetings. And we encourage all commissioners to get involved. This is your show. This is your day. This is your time to present yourselves to your communities, that you are there for them and you represent them on this commission. Any issues they have, they can raise them with you. But my goal is that the residents of San Diego County know they can go to our commissioners here for help and assistance in whatever area they have concerns in. So I'm looking forward to the template has already been established and created by our own Commissioner Evans. And we're going to follow that template and again, have a second successful town hall meeting with our San Diego County residents in the central area. I also want to acknowledge our essential partners work that we're doing with them. Some of you have responded to the surveys, and I look forward to the journey that we're going to take under their leadership and direction as well. I just can't wait to see what the end product will look like. And I also wanted to lift up Julia Legospi, who has some health challenges, and I just want you all to keep her in mind, lift her up, and we're hoping for a successful, speedy recovery. And again, I want to thank you all for being here today, and I look forward to seeing you in person. I think I might bring some donuts or something. My goodness.
And Chair Nash, can we just acknowledge Commissioner Villaforte, this being his last meeting?
Oh, yeah.
And thanking him for his
Commissioner
service. He's been
Forte,
replaced by,
thank you
so
so much.
I see his hand is raised, so.
Alex, take it away. You're our
Yeah, I
last.
just wanted to say a quick thank you to you all. It's been great to serve with you all on this commission. It is my last meeting, and I believe the replacement in terms of the person appointed by the San Diego API Coalition will hopefully start on March, given the paperwork will be all complete. Also, I am taking on a new role. It is my second day as executive director of the Pacific Arts Movement, which showcases the San Diego Asian Film Festival. So thank you all, and I hope to connect and work with you all in some way, shape, or form as we continue to work for our communities.
Excellent, excellent.
And Chair Nash, and thank you, Alex, very much for your contributions. We also have Commissioner Evans and Commissioner Fowler's hands up. I don't know if you want to.
Oh, yes. Wait, 1 minute. I don't like to go over. Go ahead.
Okay,
I don't have any comments. Thank you.
thank you for the compliment, but it was really a team effort in terms of getting the community meetings going. So thank you. I have a request, I guess. Why are we doing the LGBTQ event in February as opposed to October or June? And secondly, Cinnamon Clark, he did an excellent job with Black History Month. Could we also talk a little bit more about Carter Woodson, Dr. Carter Woodson, who developed the whole Black History Month next time?
We can talk about, well, you know, as we all say, Black history is American history and it's year long. So we can always bring that back on the agenda at another point. Yeah.
All right.
All right. Good seeing everyone. Excited to see all of you in person in March, and have a great rest of the month. Take care.
Take care, everybody.
Take care.